Welcome back to Shrinking It Down, Mental Health Made Simple. I'm Gene Beresin.
And I'm Steve Schlossman.
And today, we're going to be talking about what everybody's talking about, the Oscars.
We are going to be one of a bazillion podcasts trying to talk about the Oscars over the next 3 to 4 weeks, 5 weeks. So we got to make this special for the Clay Center. Why do two child psychiatrists, why does an organization whose job it is to sort of make available what it means to come of age and grow up and when people are not doing well or doing better?
So rather than focusing on glamour, celebrities,
wait.
or necessarily...
I don't agree with you, because our patients focus on glamour and celebrities.
Okay, what I was going to say, because our patients do bring this in, what I was going to say is the themes of the Oscars, to me at least this year, are maybe more pertinent to what's really going on in the world today, in the minds of the kids that we see and the families that we see, and that in some level the actors go beyond their roles in the Oscars themselves, because it really does become a part of their life. So there's a blurring of the actors and who they are as people and their life histories, number one. But number two, I think the content is really pertinent. I mean, it's alive. Every kid that I've talked to, even for the films that I haven't seen yet, have brought them in and said, you know, something this really got to me.
Yeah, but there's a couple reasons for that, right? Like every year, I'm going to argue, movies are a big part of culture, of American culture, they're a form of art. Every year, the Oscars reflect to some extent where we are culturally. The difference now is we are in a time of cultural turmoil, right, of searching for what it means literally to be an American, how we define that, what identity is. And this is exactly what our patients are dealing with, just developmentally. And our patients and our actors have access to one another, and our directors and writers via social media.
So they reveal more about themselves, and they talk about what they're doing. Yeah.
They actually talk to each other. Like I've had patients who note that a director, a famous like Judd Apatow was on a plane, and he said, for the next 20 minutes I will be responding to tweets. One of my patients happened to send him a tweet, and he wrote back.
Wow.
And it felt like this connection. So I think there's a bunch of reasons we ought to talk about the Oscars, but from the perspective of the Clay Center, we want to talk about it because it is literally generating discussions with our patients and with kids who happen not to be patients at all about what it means to grow up in this country.
About the journey.
In this time, in this very time. And look at the titles, like Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, Green Book, Roma, Stars Born. These are all movies about identity, really, like about being on the outside
and growth and change.
Yeah,
and which is common in most dramas, but meeting particular challenges.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is a really neat year. I think also there's probably plenty of films that are not on this list that we're staring at here that we could talk about. But for the purposes of this podcast, what's a film on here that you've seen? What's the one film?
Well, the Black Panther is
I think it's just called Black Panther, not the Black Panther. But that's okay. That's okay. You're allowed. Why? What do you remember about it? Like I got memories of that movie. What do you think?
Well, I think it captured a lot of themes that are really, as we were saying, they're really important today. I mean, the themes of, coming out of a Marvel comic book, which has a long history, like DC Comics, I say, of...
You're gonna make people angry because there is a big DC Marvel rivalry out there.
I know there is.
But Marvel...
They have similar, from what I understand, similar roots. Where the original writers came out of oppression, whether they were Holocaust survivors or pogrom survivors, and they had certain themes about being oppressed, about losing almost everything, families, orphans, and then becoming heroes to do something bigger to kind of undo the hardship that they and their people had endured, and I think that's Black Panther captures a lot of that, but I think in ways that are unique and that are different from the other superhero films that I've seen.
The opening scene of Black Panther. The opening scene, there's a spaceship over a socioeconomically disadvantaged neighborhood in Oakland, California, and these kids who presumably feel like they're they will never get out of this neighborhood, are suddenly introduced to this technology that's far advanced to anything that the people who they feel are not letting them out of this neighborhood are telling them doesn't exist, right? And then they get this hero character that look, schools all over the nation took their classes to go see this movie. I'm not sure it's a great film. The question whether is it like a fantastically made film? Yeah, it's really fun. Is there a lot of CGI? Yes, but I think the reason schools went to it is it spawns discussions. What does it mean for you to see a highly technologic advanced nation that's hidden? What does that mean about the possibility rather than the reality? And then add to that the fact that this guy, this hero, is so not alone, which makes him different from every other
communal.
hero.
And that was one of the points I wanted to make, because if you think about Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, you know, they are solo pilots.
Unless they join together like
the Avengers,
yeah,
right. But this is really a hero of a community, of a nation, of a country, and
with some really, really strong women that I would not want to tangle with under any circumstances.
So that's another important one. This elevates the importance and the value and the power of women in society. That's a big difference. And the other thing that really struck me is that the villain, I felt at least, this kind of sympathy. I felt.
Well, he's a product of the very America that this movie is trying to talk about.
And if you believe that he was fighting the oppression and the disenfranchisement and the suppression and all of the horrors that African Americans had gone through in the United States and continue to, and that was his reaction. I mean, you can't help but feel some sympathy.
No. I think that's
to where he was coming from.
It's Michael Jordan. He's a fantastic actor. Yeah. So that I remember.
So that's really unique, because usually you don't feel sympathy for the villains.
Right. Well, I think a good movie
Heath
makes
Ledger?
you.
Did you feel sympathy?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he's suffering.
He was suffering.
But what's interesting here is you feel sympathy because he's a product of a
systematic oppression.
Right. I think when I've heard people push back against this movie, and movies like Black Klansman for that matter, what they've said is they worry that by focusing on this race issue in particular, they necessarily get left out of the conversation if they happen not to be of the minority race.
Unless they can translate it to oppression that their cultural group has, gone through.
Either suffered or created.
That's right.
Right, and both of those are really, really important. And I think that's where the movies bring strength.
So how much sympathy do you feel for the villain, and how much guilt do you feel?
Yeah, and also, I mean, look, you can feel all the sympathy in the world. He still can't do what he wants to do, right? He still can't take over the world and destroy, this amazing place in Central Africa that nobody.
Well, and then the other thing about it was that the hero and their community doesn't just not accept his premise or his motives, but they want to give what they have known and what they have learned to the world.
Yeah.
So they want to share it. So just as opposed to oppressing, fighting fire with fire, they want to actually join people together and share the knowledge, the wisdom, the experience that they have, which is really elegant.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And that's why I think they're taking the kids to school, because what they want to show is out of adversity, one can be just as bad as the villains, or you can rise above it.
And I should point out, despite people pushing back and saying I can't be part of this conversation, Black Panther was loved by kids of all cultures, all over this country. It was, I think, the most profitable Marvel movie in history so far.
So why do you think that there was such identification?
Because it's appealing. The idea of having community that can, that is flawed, right? Like, he makes mistakes.
Yes.
So community that's flawed, but the community helps the hero stay in line. I mean, I think those kinds of themes speak especially to young people, and especially during this time in our country.
Where we're so polarized,
right,
and things are not coming together.
Right, nothing's going to work if people don't work together,
right,
in these films. And we should make sure, in order to do this justice, we should talk about some of the other films.
Well, which one do you want to talk about?
Well, I did want to talk about Black Klansman, and I still do. the reason I'm rushing through it is I worry that people think, oh, well, it's just another movie about African American themes, and it is not. First of all, it's an absolutely 100% true story. After I saw the movie, I went to the bookstore and got the book. They follow it to a T. The only difference is it was state troopers in the book as opposed to local police in Colorado Springs. It's a wonderfully acted movie. It is absolutely true. The fact that David Duke took this phone call and literally said to the guy, oh, I could tell if you were black from the way you're talking. And it's a black guy talking. That's a wonderful moment. The fact that it really happened and then David Duke resurfaced recently in the United States, around the issues in Charlottesville and other awful things. Sure. I think that's great. And then if you've seen that movie, you feel kind of uplifted 5 minutes before it's over because the good guys win. And then they go immediately to live cover or live footage of the Charlottesville stuff. And you're like, oh my God, this thing happened in the early 70s.
This is today.
And this is today. Yeah. And boy, do we have work to do. So I thought, besides Spike Lee being an amazing filmmaker, I thought the story, gosh, there couldn't be a better time for us to see that story. The other one I want to bring up is Bohemian Rhapsody, and there's a reason for that here. I remember discovering the band Queen when I was a kid. I remember being fascinated by the fact that Freddie Mercury was gay, because people just weren't openly gay during the time of Queen. It just wasn't something that was talked about, and he very openly talked about it. And all of my friends who, I grew up in a fairly homophobic part of the world during that time, which wasn't that unusual, they just gave it a pass.
And but okay, so then the key question is, why did they give him a pass? Was it because of his rebelliousness, his outrageous behavior, his being way over the top? What was it about those kids that
I think
that's
exactly the question that I want, and that's what makes this movie so special.
Because he was given a pass.
I think Freddie Mercury's ability to be himself without apology, without
be genuine.
Yeah, like, this is how I perform. After I saw that movie, I went back and watched old YouTube clips of old Queen concerts. That guy was incredible.
So what's interesting is you began this podcast with talking about how the kids that we see are struggling with identity.
Yeah.
And what Freddie Mercury does is he is who he is.
Yeah. And what's fascinating to me is kids have come in who've seen that movie who like the band. Like, they don't know that Another One Bites the Dust was by Queen. They all know Bohemian Rhapsody. They all know that song. Everybody knows that song. It's a masterpiece. They're kind of shocked by this big deal about Freddie Mercury being gay. They're like, so what? And it shows me how much things have changed. It might show me how old I am, but it's also like how much things have changed in a relatively short time, and it gives me a kind of hope. And the other thing we should mention is Freddie Mercury was one of the first casualties to HIV/AIDS. The public casualties that everyone knew about. So every one of these movies can be seen through a political lens in a way that I haven't seen in previous Oscar seasons. And
most of them are highly politicized.
And our patients and the kids on the street, kids in high schools that I just know through my daughter's friends, stuff like that, they all see it through those lenses too.
And if you look at these, Green Book.
Vice.
Vice.
Vice. The same guy who made Vice made Talladega Nights. Isn't that fascinating? He made The Anchorman, the same guy. So he took this very serious time in American history, the election of George Bush in an election that was contested, to say the least, and he made it into a comedy, but also made it a sympathetic moment. It was like, these are really, really cool moments here. So I encourage folks, this year especially, to pay attention to what wins and how it wins, and even more, to when the people win and the people who don't win, what they say. Because as we pointed out, they're not just saying these in the movies. Lady Gaga's in A Star Is Born, but she's also extremely well known for what she does off the screen.
That's right.
And is not shy about that. And kids know that.
So the message really is how does it relate to who you are, what we're going through, and what the nation is going through.
So as child psychiatrists, if we were going to tell families or other clinicians or teachers what they ought to do here's here's what they got to do. These movies are talk-aboutable in ways that other movies in the past haven't
They
been.
open up conversations.
Yeah, and they ought to go for it.
And that's why they took the kids to see Black Panther.
And then
because they
push
are so
back.
stimulating.
And then I really, really, really want to beg families and beg schools to be controversial about these things. Don't tell them they have to like Black Panther.
Right.
In fact, ask them to come up with a reason why they didn't like Black
Yeah.
Panther, even if they didn't.
Well, you could say that about almost all of these
Yeah,
films.
teach them to think critically and honestly, and then if somebody strongly disagrees with them, teach them to civilly disagree.
Yeah.
That's really, really important.
And as opposed to the kinds of political arguments we're
Knee-jerk.
seeing right now, which are just dismissing each other or tweeting negative things, is to really have conversations, like
yep, this
like
is.
William F. Buckley and Gore Vidal, which
You go back to that
I
one
go
all
back
the
to that one all
time.
the time.
I know.
No, but that
It was
becomes a paradigm.
800 years ago, but yes, I know.
It was.
It was.
But that's
not
become that's like a paradigm.
It is a paradigm. If you read the historical podcasts, they actually weren't as friendly with each other as we'd like to think.
I looked when I first said that on one of these podcasts. I actually went back and looked at it, and they were nasty.
They were, but by today's standards,
They were not
it felt
nasty.
like a civil debate.
Yes, it did.
Right. Look, it's no secret that I love film, and that you love film, and we both love art. We also really see art and film as a way that we can talk to kids, in a way that we can allow them to express their feelings in the safe distance and displacement that art affords. We would ask everyone watching today to do that same thing, to have these discussions with their kids, to have these discussions with their patients, with their teachers,
Watch them together.
with parents, or apart, but try and talk about it.
But have discussions.
Yeah. And if you guys have any questions about it or any suggestions, any films we didn't talk about you'd like us to, please.
Or
please
any
let
ones
us
that
know.
you wish were nominated
Yeah,
that
and that
haven't
weren't.
been nominated, because there are plenty of good films out there.
Yeah, of course.
So, well, thanks a lot, everybody, and send us your comments and questions and.
This is when you say, I'm Gene Beresin.
I forgot who I was. I'm Gene Beresin.
And I'm Martin Scorsese. And I'm Steve Schlossman. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.